The morning mist still clung to my garden when I stepped outside, coffee mug warming my hands against the early autumn chill. This was my sanctuary, my piece of paradise that I'd cultivated over the past 5 years. Every rose, every herb, every carefully placed stone had a purpose, a story. The garden had been my mother's dream before she passed, and I'd made it my mission to bring that dream to life. I'm Sarah Mitchell, 32, botanical garden designer and keeper of my mother's legacy. My roses had won the state championship 3 years running, and this year, I was finally ready for the national competition. The judges were coming today for the preliminary evaluation. The first hint that something was wrong was the scattered petals on the pathway, red against gray stone, like drops of blood on concrete. My heart started racing as I followed the trail to my prize rose garden. The destruction was absolute. My award-winning black Baccarat roses, the ones I'd cultivated for years through countless seasons, lay broken and trampled. The special hybrid I'd developed, named A Linner's Dream after my mother, had been torn from its roots. 5 years of work destroyed in what must have been minutes of rage. A white envelope sat pristine among the devastation, my name written in familiar flowing script. Inside was a note. Dear sister, $50,000 for my surgery doesn't seem so expensive compared to your precious roses, does it? The greenhouse is next unless you transfer the money by noon. Don't bother calling Dad. He agrees I deserve this more than your stupid flowers. Love, Victoria. My hands shook as I read the note. Victoria, my stepsister, had been demanding money for her latest cosmetic surgery for weeks. I'd refused, not because I couldn't afford it, but because this would have been her 4th procedure this year, each one funded by manipulating family members. I heard car tires on gravel and looked up to see a sleek black Mercedes pulling into my driveway. The National Garden Competition judges were early. Perfect timing. My security cameras had caught everything. Good morning, I called out, maintaining my composure as 3 distinguished-looking individuals emerged from the car. Welcome to Mitchell Gardens. Ms. Mitchell, the lead judge, Margaret Woodward, extended her hand. We're here for the... She stopped, noticing the destruction behind me. Oh my, what happened here? I smiled calmly. Actually, you've arrived at the perfect moment. Would you mind following me to my office? There's something you should see before we begin the evaluation. The judges exchanged glances, but followed me to the small cottage that served as my office and design studio. Inside, I pulled up the security footage from last night on my large monitor. The video was crystal clear. Victoria, in her designer workout gear, methodically destroying my garden at 3 a.m., her face was unmistakable as she yanked up my prize roses, laughing as she crushed them under her expensive sneakers. This is my stepsister, I explained to the stunned judges. She destroyed my garden because I refused to pay for her cosmetic surgery. What she doesn't know is that these roses aren't just competition entries. They're part of a botanical research project. I pulled out a file from my desk. I've been working with the State University's Agricultural Department on developing disease-resistant varieties. Everything she destroyed is documented, photographed, and backed up by scientific data. The black Baccarat variants were part of a grant-funded study. Margaret Woodward's expression shifted from sympathy to professional interest. You're saying these were research specimens? Yes, I nodded, pulling up more documentation on my computer. I've been collaborating with Dr. Patricia Anderson at the university. We've been developing roses that can withstand harsher climates while maintaining their show quality. The destroyed hybrid was showing promising results. The youngest judge, James Foster, leaned forward. The National Garden Competition has a special category for innovative botanical research. Have you considered? I have all the documentation here, I said, handing them a thick folder, including the security footage of their deliberate destruction. As the judges reviewed my files, my phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. Time's running out, sis. The greenhouse looks so fragile. I typed back. Check your email. I'd already sent her the security footage, along with copies of my research documentation and a simple message. The police and university lawyers are very interested in the deliberate destruction of grant-funded research specimens, but I'm willing to discuss alternatives. The judges spent the next hour reviewing my documentation and what remained of my garden. To my surprise, they were more impressed by my research and development process than they would have been by perfect blooms. Ms. Mitchell, Margaret said as they prepared to leave, while the destruction of your show roses is tragic, your work in botanical research and development is extraordinary. We'd like to recommend you for the Innovation in Botanical Science category. It's actually a higher honor than the traditional competition. After they left, I waited. I knew what would come next. Right on cue, my phone rang. Sarah. My stepmother Janet's shrill voice filled my ear. How dare you threaten Victoria with the police? She's your sister. Stepsister, I corrected calmly. And she destroyed 5 years of documented scientific research because I wouldn't pay for her 4th cosmetic surgery this year. She deserves to feel beautiful. You're just jealous because. I'm sending you the same documentation I sent Victoria, I interrupted. The university lawyers will be calling tomorrow unless we reach an agreement today. There was a long pause. What kind of agreement? I looked out at my destroyed garden, remembering my mother's voice. Gardens teach us that destruction can lead to new growth, Sarah. Sometimes you have to prune to thrive. Victoria will pay for the damage, not just the plants, but 5 years of research time. She'll attend counseling for her body image issues instead of getting another surgery. And you and Dad will stop enabling her destructive behavior. Or I let the lawyers handle it. The university takes destruction of research property very seriously. How do you think Victoria's social media followers would react to her being arrested? Another long pause. I'll talk to your father. I ended the call and walked back to my garden. Among the destruction, a single Eleanor's dream rose remained, its deep purple petals untouched. From its seeds, I could rebuild. Sometimes destruction leads to something stronger. My phone buzzed again, an email from the Garden Competition Committee. The subject line read, Congratulations, advanced to national finals, innovation category. I smiled, took a picture of the surviving rose, and sent it to Victoria with a message. Thanks for helping me find a better path to victory. The counseling center opens at 9 a.m. tomorrow. I'll drive you. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's forcing growth where there was only destruction. My mother taught me that in her garden long ago. The next morning dawned clear and cold, frost glittering on what remained of my garden. I sat in my car outside Victoria's luxury apartment building, waiting. At 8:57 a.m., she emerged, looking nothing like the confident destroyer from the security footage. Her designer outfit had been replaced with simple jeans and a sweater, her usually perfect makeup absent. You're really making me do this, she said, sliding into the passenger seat. It wasn't a question. The counseling or the restitution? I asked, pulling away from the curb. Because yes, to both. Victoria stared out the window. Dad says you're being unreasonable. That sisters should help each other. Interesting definition of help, I replied, considering you destroyed my life's work to blackmail me for surgery money. It's just flowers, she muttered, but her voice lacked conviction. Those just flowers were worth more than your surgery would have cost, I said, turning onto the main road. The university grant alone was $75,000. But this isn't about money, Victoria. It's about why you thought destroying something I love would make me help you. She remained silent as we pulled into the counseling center's parking lot. Dr. Elizabeth Morgan was waiting for us. I'd sent her the security footage and explained the situation. I'll be back in an hour, I told Victoria. After your session, we're going to the garden center. You're going to learn exactly what you destroyed. While Victoria was in therapy, I drove to my garden. The university research team had arrived to document the damage and collect any salvageable specimens. Dr. Patricia Anderson, my research partner, was photographing the destruction. Sarah, she called out when she saw me. "We've found something interesting." She led me to where the Eleanor's dream roses had been. Look at the root system of the destroyed plants. The genetic modification we introduced, it made them incredibly resilient. They're already showing signs of regeneration. She was right. Tiny green shoots were emerging from the crushed stems. Like my mother always said, life finds a way to bloom. When I picked up Victoria, something had shifted. Her eyes were red, but her posture was different, less defensive. Dr. Morgan says I have body dysmorphia, she said quietly as we drove to the garden center. She says I've been using surgery to fix something that isn't physical. I nodded, but stayed silent, letting her continue. She asked me why I destroyed your garden. I said it was to force you to help me. But she paused. She made me realize I did it because I hate that you're successful at something I can't compete with. You created beauty instead of trying to buy it. We pulled into Anderson's Garden Center, where I'd arranged a special lesson. Mark Anderson, the owner and a fellow botanical researcher, was waiting. "Welcome to Gardening 101, he said, leading us to a workshop area. "Sarah tells me you need to understand what you destroyed. Let's start with the basics of rose cultivation." For the next 2 hours, Victoria learned about soil composition, pH levels, genetic crossbreeding, and the years of work that go into developing new rose varieties. Her hands, with their perfect manicure, got dirty for the first time in years. Each rose variety you destroyed, Mark explained, represented hundreds of hours of work. The black Baccara variants were part of a study that could help develop more resilient food crops. Your sister's research isn't just about beautiful flowers. It's about solving real problems. Victoria's hands trembled as she held a delicate rose cutting. "I didn't know," she whispered. "No, you didn't," I agreed. "But now you do. And knowledge comes with responsibility." We spent the afternoon loading my car with supplies, soil, tools, new rose bushes. The real work would begin tomorrow. "Your restitution isn't just about money," I told her as we drove back. "You're going to help me rebuild. Every day for as long as it takes. Between your therapy sessions, you'll learn what it means to create something instead of destroying it." "Dad won't like that," she said. "He thinks manual labor is beneath us." "Dad's opinion stopped mattering when he supported your vandalism," I replied. "This isn't negotiable, Victoria. It's either this or legal charges." That evening, as I was documenting the day's work, my phone rang. It was Margaret Woodward from the competition committee. "Ms. Mitchell, your story has sparked considerable interest. The committee would like you to give a presentation at the Nationals about resilience in botanical research. both of the plants and the researchers. I looked out at my damaged garden, where new supplies sat ready for tomorrow's work. Actually, I have an idea for something better. What if we demonstrated how destruction can lead to innovation? I have a unique perspective on that now. Go on, she said, intrigued. My garden was destroyed by someone who needed help, but didn't know how to ask for it. Now that same person is going to help rebuild it, learning about science and healing in the process. Isn't that what gardening is really about? Growth from adversity? There was excitement in Margaret's voice. Submit a proposal. This could be exactly what the innovation category needs. The human element in botanical research. After hanging up, I sent Victoria a text. 6 a.m. tomorrow. Wear old clothes. We're rebuilding more than just a garden. Her reply came quickly. I'll be there. Dr. Morgan says creating something might help me destroy less, including myself. I smiled, touching the petals of the surviving Eleanor's dream rose. Mom would have liked that, turning destruction into a lesson about growth. Sometimes the things we think will break us just clear the ground for something stronger to grow. Tomorrow, we begin planting new seeds, both in the garden and in Victoria's healing process. Sometimes the hardest flowers to grow are the ones that bloom after the storm. A month passed, marked by early mornings and dirt-stained hands. Victoria showed up every day at 6 a.m., trading her designer clothes for work boots and gardening gloves. The change in her wasn't just external. Each day spent nurturing new life seemed to heal something inside her. The roses, she said one morning, carefully pruning a new black baccara shoot. They don't care what you look like. They just respond to how you treat them. I watched her work, remembering how those same hands had destroyed everything just weeks ago. Plants are honest that way, I replied. They show us who we really are. The university research team had been documenting our restoration process. Dr. Anderson was particularly interested in how the damaged roses were recovering. The resilience they'd engineered into the plants was exceeding expectations. Your sister's destruction might have actually helped us, she told me during one of her visits. We're seeing regenerative patterns we wouldn't have discovered otherwise. Sometimes catastrophic damage reveals hidden strengths. Victoria overheard this, and later, during our lunch break, she asked, "Do you think that's true for people too? That damage can make us stronger." I thought about our mother, how her illness had inspired my work in botanical research. I think, I said carefully, that healing is a choice. Just like these roses could have died, but they chose to grow back stronger. That afternoon, we received unexpected visitors. Dad and Jen arrived unannounced, looking out of place in their expensive clothes among the garden beds. "This has gone on long enough," Janet declared. "Victoria, you've proved your point. You've done your penance. It's time to come home." Victoria stood up, dirt streaking her face, and something in her posture had changed. "No," she said firmly. "I'm not finished here." "Don't be ridiculous." Dad stepped forward. "We found an excellent plastic surgeon in Switzerland. He can see you next week." I watched Victoria's hands tighten around her gardening tools. A month ago, she would have jumped at the offer. "Now, I don't want more surgery," she said quietly. "Dr. Morgan is helping me see that I was trying to fix on the outside what was broken on the inside. This garden, it's teaching me how to grow instead of just changing my appearance." "This is absurd," Janet scoffed. "You're a Winters, not some common gardener." Victoria smiled, and for the first time, I saw our mother's strength in her face. "Actually, I've applied to the university's botanical program." Dr. Anderson thinks my experience with the restoration project would make me a good candidate for their research team. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of bees among the recovering roses. Dad's face had turned an interesting shade of red. "If you do this," he said, "we'll cut you off. No more allowance. No more credit cards." Victoria looked at the garden, at the new growth emerging from the destruction she'd caused. "That's okay," she said. "I'm learning there are better things to cultivate than a bank account." After they stormed off, I found Victoria crying among the roses. But these weren't the manipulative tears I'd seen so often before. These were healing tears. "They'll never understand," she whispered. "Maybe not," I agreed. "But you do now, and that's what matters." The next week, the National Garden Competition Committee visited again. They were amazed by the transformation, not just of the garden, but of our story. "This is more than just botanical innovation," Margaret Woodward said, watching Victoria carefully tending to the Eleanor's dream roses. "This is about human resilience, about growth through adversity. We'd like both of you to present at the Nationals." Victoria looked up, surprised. "Both of us?" "Yes," Margaret smiled. "Your perspective on destruction and redemption through gardening adds a unique dimension to the research narrative." That evening, as we were cleaning up, Victoria handed me an envelope. Inside was a check for $75,000. "It's everything in my savings," she said. "The money I would have spent on surgery. It doesn't begin to cover the damage I caused, but—" I handed the check back. "Keep it," I said. "Use it for your education. Mom always said the best gardens grow from well-nourished soil." Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "I never understood before why you chose this life instead of following Dad into business. But creating something, nurturing it, it fills a space inside that no amount of surgery could touch." I looked at our restored garden, at the roses that had grown back stronger from their destruction. The Eleanor's dream roses were blooming again, their purple petals even more vibrant than before. Mom also used to say that gardens are living proof that beauty doesn't have to be perfect to be magnificent. I told her, "I think she'd be proud of how you're growing." Victoria touched a rose petal gently. Do you think she'd be proud of me too?" "She would be now," I said softly, "because you're finally blooming into who you're meant to be." As the sun set over our healing garden, I realized that sometimes the most beautiful transformations come from the deepest wounds. Victoria had come to destroy my garden, but in the end, the garden had restored her. The National Garden Competition finals arrived on a crisp October morning, exactly 3 months after Victoria's destructive night. We stood together backstage at the convention center, our presentation ready. "I'm nervous," Victoria whispered, fidgeting with her simple blazer, a far cry from her once elaborate wardrobe. "What if they judge me for what I did?" "They will," I said honestly. "But they'll also see who you've become." Sometimes the most powerful stories start with mistakes. Our presentation was titled "From Destruction to Innovation: The Resilience of Both Gardens and Gardeners." Victoria would speak first. When she stepped up to the podium, her hands trembled, but her voice was clear. "3 months ago, I destroyed my sister's award-winning garden because I thought external beauty was all that mattered. Today, I'm here to share how that act of destruction led to unexpected growth, not just for the plants, but for me." The audience sat captivated as Victoria shared her journey from destroyer to creator. She showed before and after photos, not just of the garden but of herself, the subtle transformation from someone obsessed with perfection to someone who had found peace in nurturing life. When it was my turn, I presented our research findings. The trauma inflicted on our specialized roses revealed an unprecedented level of resilience. The damaged plants developed stronger root systems and more vibrant blooms. In destroying my garden, my sister accidentally helped us discover new pathways for botanical regeneration. Dr. Anderson joined us on stage to present the scientific data. The rose's recovery had implications far beyond our garden, potential applications for crop resilience and climate adaptation. The questions from the judges and audience weren't just about the plants. They wanted to know about healing, about redemption, about the parallel between botanical and human resilience. The greatest lesson, Victoria answered one judge, was learning that true beauty comes from growth, not perfection. These roses don't try to be anything other than what they are, and they're magnificent. We won first place in the innovation category, but the real victory came afterward. A university representative approached Victoria with a scholarship offer for their botanical program. "We need researchers who understand both the science and the soul of plants," she said. That evening, we celebrated in my garden, now our garden. The Aliner's dream roses bloomed around us, their petals catching the sunset light. "Sarah," Victoria said softly, "do you remember what you told me about Mom's favorite saying? About gardens being living proof that beauty doesn't need perfection?" I nodded. I think I finally understand. All those surgeries, I was trying to become some perfect version of myself. But real beauty is like these roses, resilient, authentic, even with its scars. Dad and Janet never did understand Victoria's transformation. But as I watched my sister tenderly care for the roses she once destroyed, I knew she had found something more valuable than their approval. The garden had healed us both, me from the pain of her betrayal, her from the prison of perfection she'd built around herself. In the end, Mom was right. Gardens teach us everything we need to know about life, growth, and healing. Victoria touched the Aliner's dream rose that had survived her rampage, the original one that helped us rebuild. "Think she'd be proud of us?" she asked. I looked at my sister, really looked at her. The designer clothes and perfect makeup were gone, replaced by dirt-stained jeans and a genuine smile. In her eyes, I saw the same passion for creation that Mom had. "She is proud," I said. "Every time these roses bloom, that's her smiling at who we've become." As the sun set on our restored garden, we stood together among the flowers that had taught us both about resilience, redemption, and the kind of beauty that blooms from within. Sometimes the most precious growth comes after the deepest wounds. You just have to be willing to get your hands dirty and do the work of healing.